Welcome, everybody, to the Channel Vision Magazine webinar featuring NHC, the communications stack provider, which wants to know if you're selling contact centers, and if you aren't, why not? I'm your moderator, Bruce Christian, Senior Editor of Channel Vision Magazine. Our host for this discussion is Chris Susi, the Director of Product and Brand at NHC. And with that, Chris, take it away.
Thank you, Bruce. I appreciate that. And thank you, everyone, for joining and taking some time out of your day today. I know it's very valuable, especially as we're winding down the month and winding down the quarter. So I will be brief in introducing the participants on the webinar today. Today we're talking, as Bruce indicated, we're talking about contact center. For those of you who aren't familiar with NHC and what we're selling, so we are the communication stack provider nationwide, coast to coast, as well as Canada and the Caribbean, and we do sell data around the world. We also sell contact center. Contact center is an important piece of your business communications, whether you have a large call center or you have a small doctor's office, or pardon me, your customers have a small doctor's office. It is an extremely important tool that you can use. And on the call today with us is our upstream contact center software provider, Intermedia. Alistair Quinteros and Rob Oscanyan are going to lead us through the Intermedia contact center solution that we've been partnering on opportunities with for a few years now, and hopefully that'll drive some interest on the contact center solution for your customers. So, and we'll be taking questions at the end of this, as Bruce had indicated. So, with that, Rob Oscanyan with Intermedia.
All right. Hey, thanks so much, Chris. There we go. Got it out there. We're excited to talk you all through this. And again, like the question asked, like not selling contact center, why not? What we'll do is we'll walk you through just the opportunity that's in front of you, why you should be considering it, maybe making it one of the core pieces of your business communication strategy, and also kind of walk you through understanding what contact center is, who can use it, and hopefully by the end of it, give you the confidence that you need to start having these great conversations with NHC about how you can jump in with them. But for now, what we'll do is we'll jump off the webcam and we'll go right into it. One of the very first things to keep in mind when it comes to understanding contact center is that it actually is a piece of what we would call a larger business communication strategy, or fulfilling the needs of what a business needs when it comes to their business communication strategy. So this is regardless of any sort of business size or industry, location, what have you. Every single business needs to have communication and collaboration tools in order to be an effective business. On the one side, internally, at the end of the day, they need to leverage those communication and collaboration tools to drive better employee productivity. And they do that because there's everybody in that organization. This is the area that you all are probably very familiar with, especially with NHC, with the unified communication side of the business, making sure individuals within the organization are working together to make sure that they're achieving business goals by allowing them to collaborate effectively. On the other side, though, and do offer a very rudimentary version of this, but on the external side of the business, when it comes to external communications, they're leveraging, they being those businesses, are leveraging communication and collaboration tools to improve their customers' experience. So when you take that individual, that view of individuals inside the organization collaborating with each other, you also want to make sure that those outside the organization also have access to those individuals, and that at the exact same time, people within that organization, within that business, can effectively collaborate quickly to resolve those customer queries or questions or requests or what have you. So getting both of those, like I said, is really what encompasses what we would call that business communications cloud. If you're supplying one side of it, great. If you're allowing for that better collaboration and employee productivity internally, fantastic. Make sure that you're doing a good job of looking at customer experience and what you're doing to help those businesses deliver a great customer experience. And the fact of the matter is that all these businesses are looking to do both, right? And so that kind of comes out to the new battleground that we're seeing. I think post-pandemic and even during the pandemic, one of the things that really stood out was that businesses were looking at ways of improving their customer experience because customers were becoming more vocal about how businesses were treating them, especially with changing conditions and what have you. In fact, 89% of those businesses are now saying they plan on competing based on customer experience. So as you think strategically about how you can better support your customers, or these businesses, I should say, as your clients, keep in mind that they're going to be looking for solutions that help them improve that customer experience. And having a foothold within the business, making sure that you've captured both the unified communication side of the business, but also making sure you've also captured that customer experience side of the business is what's going to ensure longevity for you and having a foothold with that client. What's interesting though is although the majority of them are saying, yes, this is how we're planning on competing, a lot of businesses, although they think they're doing a good job, most of their customers don't think that they are. What this actually translates out into is a massive opportunity for the businesses that you work with. If they are considering a good customer experience, fantastic. But make sure that they're using the right tools to ensure that they're delivering a good experience so that they can capture a lot of those businesses or a lot of those customers who've indicated that, yeah, after a bad experience, I'll be looking somewhere else to do business with somebody. So good opportunity to drive more revenue. If you're in those conversations with your businesses or with these clients that you're working with to drive revenue, this is a great area to do so. Now, we've talked a lot about that. We said, oh yeah, a lot of companies are planning on competing on customer experience. But one of the things that proves itself out is what happens because they focus on that good customer experience. Revenue does increase. We talked about those customers who leave based on a bad experience. Well, it turns out a lot of those customers will go to businesses who are getting good reviews, who people have said treat them well. The best part about it is that when you do focus on customer experience and when your business is focused on doing it and delivering good customer experiences, they can actually lower their costs. A lot of that it comes from the fact that it is a lot less expensive to keep your current customer base than it is to find a new one. And on top of that, most customers are actually more than willing to continue to buy and use services. So think of like the different industries that you support, whether it's professional services like HVAC, legal, or real estate services. These customers, because they had such a good experience, may be willing to buy again and are very, very likely to buy again from a business that delivers a good experience. So another reason why it helps lower costs and drive increasing revenues is because customers, like I said, are getting more vocal. I think I was reading a study out there by, I think it was McKinsey & Company, that said the number of online reviews have skyrocketed. So because those people are getting more vocal, they're your best source for additional marketing and for the businesses that you serve as well. So it's a good idea to focus on customer experience simply because this is where you can find more revenue, at the same time lower the cost that you have for doing business.
And that's a big number. If you take a look at the market growth here, 4.1 billion, that's a big number. Now, a lot of you on this call are part of that. I mean, you're starting to see a lot of what's driving contact center deals is that deprecation of all that hardware. Toshiba's gone, Nortel's gone, ShoreTel's gone, Mitel quit the cloud, Avaya's in and out of problems. So we all know, and we could all agree that the cloud is here to stay, and this 4.1 billion, by some accounts, it's actually a small number. There are some analysts that think that's going to be a much bigger number. So what's happening is that when you are in a sale, when you are in a meeting with a prospect and you have a UC quote and you're providing them with a UC quote, you have a toll-free quote. What you want to do is you want to ask the question, who's calling this toll-free number? Who's answering those calls? Who's responsible for that group? Is that individual getting the data and the analytics that they need? How do they know that their staff is adherent to the expected behaviors for that kind of interaction? You want to ask these simple questions to drag the customer service leadership into the conversation. You're still having your your tried and true conversations around, how many handsets do you need, how many cell phones do you need, where are your locations, how many voice channels, all these sorts of things. But when you start asking the questions around contact center and who's calling that number and what is your customer experience like, what happens is you're starting to drive up the value of your quote. We have our first client went live in 2002. They're still with us today. Their price hasn't changed. We have clients that have been with us 11 plus years. Their price hasn't changed. You're leaving money on the table if you are not asking these questions. Another risk for you as the seller is if you're not asking these questions and a competitor is, you put that deal at risk. The partners that we work with that are successful in selling cloud contact center, and we're not talking the the ACD here. We're talking the $80, the $150, the $200 per user per month. What happens is they're just asking these questions. So when they're in touch with the IT leader, and they're providing these and they're having these conversations, they'll ask these questions, and they'll say, "Hey, can we bring in that customer service leader into the discussion?" What's happening is because contact center is now as a service, these user departments, they're now able to buy applications on their own, and that's just not in contact center. I mean, you're seeing that across the enterprise and various applications where these department leaders are able to go out and procure their own solutions. We're talking, VP of client services, VP of, patient revenue cycle, these sorts of things, these user leaders. So just by introducing a few simple questions, not only do you increase your chances of winning the sale, but you're going to be able to elevate your quote and continue to sell some of those core things that you sell, that you're selling, the toll-free, the local voice and data services, security on that, and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, and we'll walk you through near the end of the presentation a case study in which that actually happened, that a partner of our reached out to a customer, had a simple question, opened up through contact center, but ended up also replacing their communication tools for UCaaS. So great opportunity, and we'll jump into that here very, very soon. Usually, sometimes for those who are not in the know, and maybe, and Alistair, you let me know if this is oversimplistic, but I do like to kind of boil it down of what is a contact center. And I usually say it comes down to two things. It's two components. One is customer interaction management. You're just managing the different ways in which customers want to contact a business. And then the other side of it is the quality assurance side. That is making sure that you have dashboards and reports that allow you to see how well your business is performing relative to certain metrics that you've established or certain benchmarks that you've established as a company. But also not only being able to see how things are going, but to be able to give and collect feedback on those interactions. So having an ability for supervisors to provide evaluations on those conversations or those interactions, as well as a way to be able to reach out to customers and say, hey, how did that interaction go? And then also making sure, part of quality assurance is also making sure you have the right resources in place to manage those customer interactions. And so some lightweight, some workforce management tools or features are available there as well. But at the end of the day, that's, to me, it's managing the interactions and tracking how well those interactions are going is really what it comes down to when it comes to a contact center.
I would agree, Rob. And from a sales perspective, that's one of the key reasons why we see customers, prospects enter the buying cycle. This is one of the number one reasons. It's because of reports. I could tell you a number of sales success stories that we've had where we have engaged the prospect, and they don't have there's not an issue with the interfaces. There's not an issue with the support. They have a good relationship with their vendor. The problem is they don't have enough reports. They don't have enough information on who's calling and why are they calling. They don't have enough information on how many people I need to cover for the traffic that I have. They're not getting enough information in real time to be able to make those business decisions, to make adjustments. that's if I could point to the top 1 or 2 reasons why, from a feature perspective, why an organization enters the buying cycle for a new contact center solution, it's because of what's there on the right. They need the information. They need better reports.
Yeah, totally agreed. What's interesting is when we say, what is a contact center? If I were to ask the room, I've asked this to interns that have come to work for our, for the organization in the past. And I say, when I say contact center, what do you think? And the first things they say are like, oh, massive buildings with a lot of desks, a lot of phones, possibly overseas outsourced contact centers, getting calls that say, hey, your car's extended warranty is going out. And so there's a lot of, for the uninitiated, I would say, there's a lot of different connotations for contact center. And surprise, surprise, a lot of the customers or a lot of the businesses you may talk to may not know what contact center is. There are definitely some, especially if they have someone who's over customer support per se, or customer experience, they may already have that, knowledge of what that is. But when you ask them, hey, how many agents do you have, or what do you currently use as a contact center? A lot of them are actually going to go, what do you mean by that? Like, oh, we don't use one of those services, those overseas services. What they do focus on is they have this idea, they have this understanding that they need to manage their customer conversations. And that's really kind of how you should approach a lot of them. Alistair, like you said, great conversation starters. You've got a current customer that's using your unified communication solution. Ask them how their missed calls are going. Do they have reports that show them how their missed calls are going? And allows them to kind of start the conversation of, okay, well, you're seeing a lot of missed calls. So how are you doing with your customer experience? How are things going with those interactions? Do you know how well they're doing? Are your customers happy, and how do you know? Asking those sorts of questions versus coming out and saying, do you have a contact center and are you happy with it? It opens the door. I would say it does a much better job of opening the door to the conversation about selling contact center, when you don't necessarily lead with it. But clearly, obviously, if the customer is using that terminology, feel free to use so. But one of the key parts of this to understand is that is why the market is so huge for customer experience, because everybody needs to be able to support these customer interactions, although they may not call the solution that they need to manage those interactions a contact center. And so we kind of jokingly say, yeah, if you're using terminology like CCaaS or contact center, maybe avoid using that to start off with, but certainly you'll need to mention it eventually. But you first sell them on the outcomes that they're trying to get to. And then from there, you can start working on the solution that's meant for them. Alistair, I was actually going to ask you this one, because you have such an extensive amount of experience selling contact center, working with partners and selling contact center. When you're asked the question, who uses contact center, what comes to mind for you?
Well, for the context of this conversation, remember, we're talking on $80 per user per month. We're talking $150. We're talking a $200 user license here. We're not talking the lower end rudimentary ACD. So we're talking, these are the verticals here where clients have the propensity to invest that kind of money, especially if they're coming off an Avaya or a Cisco or a Mitel, where the costs of managing and staffing and all that knowledge of building your own contact center in-house, one of the reasons why SaaS for contact center is so attractive. But these are really the top verticals where we have seen where the end user is more than willing to make the investment in the technology and the software, because the customer experience, overrides trying to save $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 per user per month. The value of the phone call is very high. So in the sales training that we provide our partner sellers, one of the things that we talk about in terms of where do you find these deals? Where's a good vertical to go? Here's some that you could attack, but it doesn't necessarily just stop here. What's the underlying common theme amongst any of these that are going to invest that kind of that kind of dollar amount per user per month is the value of the phone call is very high. We have a client in Massachusetts. They are a pharmaceutical equipment manufacturer for the pharma companies. Their cheapest, their least expensive product is $75,000. They have like a 30-seat product support desk for those products. They could have talk times 3-4 hours. These folks, they don't sweat price. They've been a client of ours for 7 years now. They're still paying 200 plus because they're not interested in saving money on that interaction. The value of that interaction is just way too high. So as far as this conversation go, and the guidance that I could give our audience here as to where to find contact center deals with good clients that are going to stay with you and realize the value and stay with you over the long term, like how we have, these are the main suspects here from a verticals perspective. Also, where we're starting to see a lot of deals in the last few years is the advent of what we're calling the knowledge worker. As an example, we have a client, a healthcare client in Los Angeles. They are the Los Angeles Department of Health Services, the county there. This is LA General. This is MLK Hospital, all of you, some of these other hospitals, 16 some odd plus ambulatory clinics. They started off with 3 users around 11 years ago. They're over 700 users today. And what's happened is they only have around 80 some odd staff that are those frontline workers taking those calls from patients to do patient scheduling and for primary care and specialty care and that sort of thing. The other 600 plus users, these are all knowledge workers in that value chain, providing that value to the patient. We're talking radiologists, we're talking nurses, nurse triage, we're talking pharmacists, we're talking back office processing type folks. These are the people that are actually delivering that customer value, in this case the patient, behind that. There's a number of other examples that we see there where we have clients, they have 30 attorneys on this that are sitting behind that front end, that frontline staffers that are taking calls that you would think that are traditional contact center users. So, I mean, we have insurance companies that are using this. They have adjudicators, claim managers, benefits processors, people that might only take 5-10 phone calls in their workday. Yet, because of the feature functionality of contact center, because of what's been happening in the last few years with the COVID and the work from home, and the office is never going to be 100% at capacity again. There's industry analysts that are calling that contact center is going to be the de facto knowledge worker management productivity tool moving forward in the future. So this is another area of big deals that we're seeing, and we could provide some of that guidance in the sales process.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I love when you share the LA County story, only because, like you said, you started small. It was just how many workers? You said 4?
It was 3 users in one small ambulatory clinic that had, they literally had patients waiting 2 hours to speak with the front workers there to schedule an appointment. 2 hours. They're waiting 2 hours. So we fixed their wait times and their hold times and bad transfers and these sorts of things. We're able to work over the top. We'll get into that in a bit. Their existing PBX that they had over there, because I mean they're all wrapped up with AT&T. You're not gonna displace that. So we were able to work over the top of their local PRI, over the top of the local PBX handsets that they had there. And we started off with just 3 users in one ambulatory clinic. We fixed their patient engagement issues, reduced their wait times from 2 hours down to under 5 minutes, and word spread. And we grew that account one ACD group at a time. It's not 700 users behind one toll-free number. The largest group, the largest call group there is that frontline patient scheduling team of 70 some odd users, but the rest of them are small ACD teams, work group teams, knowledge worker teams, anywhere from 3 to about 30 folks.
That's awesome. We use the term customer experience a lot, right? Interchangeably, as we've kind of going back and forth about contact center, customer experience. In the case of LA County, obviously, it's patient experience. How well is that patient experience going? But regardless of what industry or what have you, the question always comes, great, you're using the term customer experience. If I say customer experience, I have no idea, it's such a huge umbrella term. What are we talking about? And oftentimes it just comes back to the outcomes that the end customer, that business's customer wants to see. And so I think it was a PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers study that actually asked a ton of customers, what are the most important aspects of a good customer experience to you? And when I think about this, I think the easiest way for me to understand this, and in fact, the easiest way for me to then turn to a potential prospective customer or a prospective business and communicate to them what a customer expects, is to put myself in the shoes of that actual customer, whether it's a student, a patient, or what have you. What is the experience that I want to see? And that allows me to then articulate the benefits of what contact center provides to that customer, to that business, I should say. So these are the different aspects. Quick access to assistance. We all want to make sure that we can, if we have a question, we have a request, we want to get a hold of somebody immediately, or at least get access to assistance immediately. When it comes to choice, I want to make sure that I feel like I can control the way in which I want to communicate with that business. Maybe that's when I want to communicate. Maybe that's how I communicate. Regardless, I want to have that choice. I don't want to be shoehorned in to one way of being able to talk to a business. I want to make sure that that business knows who I am and can provide me that personalized experience, whether it's making sure they get me to the right person based on information that I've shared with them. Maybe it's information that they have on file. I don't want to have to repeat myself. Is there a way for them to know who I am and be able to treat me valuably? We often ask that question to prospective business who wants to potentially buy contact center. Do you know the difference between a $1 customer and a $500 customer? And do you know how to treat them differently? When we talk about convenience, I want to make sure that when I do interact with that business, it's as frictionless as possible. We talked about that personalized experience. Are there ways for them to use that information to fast track customer verification? Or is there a way for me to not have to have a lot of, have to interact with somebody? Is there something I can do on my own? And lastly, when I do get a hold of someone, is that conversation going to go well? Is it going to go smoothly? Are there things in place that make sure that whenever I interact with this business, it's going to be a great experience? These are some of the things that we kind of distill down and say, okay, these are the aspects of a good customer experience. And yes, we do have features, and we want to cover those with you all, give you a high level view of what some of the features are so that you feel confident about what the contact center can do. But yeah, we'll dive into that here in a little bit. But at the end of the day, when those customers get those different aspects of a good customer experience, the business then gets all the things that we already talked about, right? Happier customers, growth when it comes to revenue, and by, in terms of number of customers, better customer retention, all the things that we talked about before. So let's kind of dive into it. We want to make sure, contact centers is this term that we use, but what are some features that you could actually mention today, you could find today, or at least understand today and their use cases, and then immediately turn around and say, I might have customers that are like that. I think I know of a customer or two that's a great use case for this. And so let's kind of dive into that really quickly with a number of these features. First one, intelligent call routing. And in actuality, we probably even should call this intelligent contact routing because of the different ways in which a customer can interact with the business, whether through voice, through chat, through email, through text messaging. Essentially, we have, interactive voice response, IVR. We can make sure that we get those customers to the right employee, the right frontline user every single time. We talk about the benefits to the customer of getting to the right person very, very quickly, routing them based on maybe it's geography, or maybe they're sending in an email and in the subject line, there's a certain keyword that we want to say, okay, if there's a keyword like this in the subject line, route this email to this individual. So yes, there's tons of benefits to the customer. But keep in mind too, that in a number of instances, in terms of the businesses that we talk to, they have a lot of turnover with their frontline users, mainly because sometimes they get frustrated. They have a lot of angry customers because they're not able to answer the questions that these customers may have. So having intelligent contact routing ensures that those employees actually are, you retain those employees because they're only getting the types of requests or the type of customers that have certain requests that they are already knowledgeable about and can handle. Alistair, I don't know if there's any major use cases that you want to pull out here or point to when it comes to IVRs, but just wanted to kind of throw that out there. Do you see any primary ones or typical use cases here?
Well, sure. What we know, essentially, we're talking skill-based routing here, getting the right call to the right individual, and IVR is essentially the next step up from your auto attendant. So once you start hearing things like, I want to integrate with my CRM, I would like to introduce some caller self-service. I need more. I'd like to route by time of day. I would like to route by the phone number that's dialed. I would like to route by functional group in my business. These are the things that an IVR could do for you, especially in those multi location, and especially with us with New Horizon.
Yeah. You talked about that already, Alistair. You kind of mentioned the idea of self-service. When we mentioned the idea of how does a contact center reduce cost, some of the best customer calls are the ones that never have to connect with an agent, never have to connect with that frontline user. But you had mentioned that. Do you want to dive a little deeper on, you were talking about with the skills-based routing and
Sure. So
tools.
The least expensive way to handle a customer interaction is to drive that customer. There's a Bearing Point. This isn't my data. This is a study that came up by Bearing Point a few years ago. The least expensive way to handle a customer interaction is to drive that customer to your website, to your FAQs, to your knowledge-based tool. That's the least expensive way. The second least expensive way is a self-service IVR. That's and at the top, the most expensive way is a real-time human-to-human voice interaction. So what you want to do is introduce strategies to reduce that talk time. One of the things that we could help you with, and one of the things that we do in the sales process when we come across a prospect that has 50 or 100 contact center seats, they are not interested in turning their 100-seat contact center into 120. They want to turn their 100-seat contact center into an 80-seat contact center, and they're looking for ways to do that. And the way how you do that is by introducing caller self-service with IVR, providing them with reports to be able to understand who's calling and why are they calling, so they could drive that data to their FAQ section or their knowledge-based tool to drive more caller self-service. And by the way, it increases customer satisfaction because the customer didn't wake up in the morning wanting to give you a call and call your toll-free number and press 1 for English. They want to get, they're trying to get back to whatever it is that they're doing. So these are some of the ways that we could help you in the sales process provide that better customer interaction, because the easier it is for a consumer or the customer to do business with a business, the more likely you're going to retain that client and get all the great benefits with having with not having to go out and try and acquire someone new.
Right. And so some of the great questions to ask I often ask, especially with self-services, are there questions that you're getting or customer requests that you're getting frequently, right? And so that's ways in which it ties up the phone lines. If they're handling these questions or common requests, hey, especially like think of a bank, hey, what's my account balance? Do I have that? Do you have that information? Can I understand that really quickly? There's just ways in which you can probably identify just by asking questions like, are there, especially if you also have a customer or a business that says, hey, I don't have a lot of resources I can't hire a ton of people all of a sudden. Well, this is a great way, right? Take the place of an actual individual with self-service tools. We talked about those. So skills-based routing, talked about self-service tools. Those are a lot of that's all inbound, right? A lot of that's inbound. So what about outbound? What about actual outbound engagement? Oftentimes I've seen this happen a lot with like applicability wise in student services, so higher education, government and public entities. They want to drive awareness around the services they have to offer, or even in healthcare, they want to make sure that patients are aware of certain things. Maybe it's an appointment that they need. But dynamic notifications, I also often like to call them automated notifications, are a way for you to be able to send via voice or email or a text message important information that customer needs to know. So for instance, appointment reminders, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Alistair, LA County was also using contact center to increase the number of patients that actually showed up for their appointments, because they were seeing a lot of what they would call broken appointments where a patient wouldn't show up.
Yeah, so, it was an interesting story. I remember we developed this feature, an appointment reminder tool for them. I remember being in the room, and I'll never forget the conversation where the business leader was having a conversation with an IT leader, and they were discussing, we want to update our appointment reminder tool, and the business leader was saying, you know what, we just have too many idle doctors. This is problematic when we make these appointments and people don't show up. We can't have that. That's a problem. So they came to us, and this is how we developed this product. And the net of this is, and there's a testimony or a video testimonial on this. We reduced their broken appointment, what they refer to their broken appointment rates, 23%. It's a huge for them.
Oh yeah, considering that, like, what is it? The industry average is like $200 for every broken appointment in the healthcare industry. If you reduce it for 20, the actual amount of savings is insane. And what's really cool about this, the automated notifications, that the customer can actually respond to these notifications and say, hey, yes, respond Y or dial 1 for this, and actually connect with an agent if they do need to talk with them.
This is the new dialer, really.
Yeah.
Everyone has a cell phone. You could get a call, you get an SMS, you can get an email. Soon we'll be releasing WhatsApp. I mean, this is the dialer of the future today.
Mm-hmm. We talked about offering more choices, right? Having that convenience and the choice of being able to communicate the way that you need to, offering different ways to communicate, via chat, text message, and email are fantastic when it comes to helping businesses better manage their customer interactions. If they're seeing a ton of missed calls, maybe it's because the only way that they're offering to customers to interact with them is either coming into the store or giving them a call. And so they're tying up their phone lines or missing those calls. It's taking way too long. Well, the best part about it is if you offer them the ability to chat or text, the usual like knee-jerk reaction is, oh my gosh, that's just more for my team to manage. But the good news is that it's actually easier to manage customer interactions that way. When we have things like canned responses for questions that may come in that the frontline user can automatically click when a text message or a web chat comes in from the website, it makes it a lot easier for your frontline users to manage interactions. Another reason is because phone calls are what we would call synchronous interactions. You have to listen. You have to be actively listening and responding. You can't necessarily be handling other voice calls at the same time. So it's a very one-to-one sort of interaction. When it comes to chat and text messages, you can answer multiple at the same time. Those are what we would call asynchronous. Somebody that you text message may not respond immediately when you text them back. And so it allows a frontline user to not only deflect a lot of those calls that would have happened over voice to other channels, but it also makes it so that you can have fewer individuals manage more interactions and save on a lot of that cost.
Yeah, and if someone's calling, sorry to interrupt, Rob, but if someone's calling, clearly that, and you offer all these different means of communication, and if someone took the time to call when they know they could have chat or send an email, then to prioritize that. Right.
You already mentioned this one, Alistair. We can go really quickly through this, but making sure that we can tie into their system of record. Speed tracks customer verification, allows you to see what the last notes were that you talked about so they can have immediate context. Maybe you have some employee turnover, making sure that's, your contact center is tied into a system of record allows you to make sure that there's continuity of service, continuity of care when it comes to interacting with that customer. Some of the things that we mentioned, we talked about the ability to provide feedback. What you're seeing here is actually a great screenshot of an evaluation that's happening. On the right-hand side of the screen, you're actually seeing a transcription of the conversation between two speakers, and it's defined. You can either also listen to it. And on the left-hand side is actually an evaluation, which is fantastic. So when we talk about what is available to the supervisor versus what, all those other functions were great for the frontline users to better manage those interactions. For the supervisors, for those who want to make sure that those interactions are going well, having things like evaluation tools are fantastic. Obviously, you have the traditional call monitoring that you would expect to have, but also having an ability to focus on the right conversations using artificial intelligence is something that's offered within contact center. So we can look and take in inbound and outbound conversations and have those recorded. The artificial intelligence tool actually listens and looks at those words in the context of the conversation and can say, hey, this conversation was predominantly positive or negative, or maybe it was just a very neutral conversation with neutral words used, can also look for specific keywords and flag a conversation for a supervisor to do an evaluation on. Makes it a lot easier for a supervisor to focus on the right conversations rather than randomly spot checking a conversation and hoping that they find one that's critical or has big impact to the business. We talked about these dashboards before. Alistair, I guess I want to just ask you, are there specific things that you hear a lot of customers or businesses, I should say, asking frequently when it comes to the dashboards or reports that they want to see?
Well, typically it's who's calling, why are they calling, and how did my team do for that? There's a number of customer service leaders where their number one metric that they're looking for, they use the term call drivers. And what they're referring to is, why are people calling? And how can we track that? And their continuous improvement processes that they have week over week is to try and reduce the amount of people calling them, unless it's the sales desk, of course, and they're trying to sell products. Outside of that, where they want to actually increase the voice, the amount of phone calls coming to them. But outside of that, those are the main metrics that they're typically looking for. Who's calling, why are they calling, and how do we do?
Yeah, I see when you're talking about those increasing their call volume, I typically see that in especially government services. I was working with helping a nonprofit organization. They're just like, we just want to make sure that everyone understands, we're a 2-on-1 organization. When an event happens, we want to make sure the right people know about certain services that are available. And they're like, we love it. We love sending out dynamic notifications. And we love using the tracking tool because then we can see whether or not that had an impact by seeing an uptick in call volumes. So a lot of features, right? We covered a ton of stuff, I would say, but they're really useful. Maybe you saw one specific feature that was really stood out to you that's helpful for a customer. But I would actually throw it back over to you, Alistair, to ask you a question. When it comes to understanding the contact center, do partners have to be experts when it comes to understanding all the different ways in which it works?
Not at all, and this is something that we help out with. So what you're seeing here is just a quick example of when you have a prospect and you take a look at their website. Before you do any sort of engagement, I mean, not just contact center and any sale engagement that you do, the more you know about that prospect, the better that meeting is going to go. So these are some of the things that we could help out with, especially when it comes to executing those discovery calls. So my team, what I do, I have a team of contact center sales specialists, and their job is to help you win that sale, and we'll get into that in a moment. But when it comes to the discovery call is absolutely critical, because there is around 3 to 6 main use cases why a contact center, why a business is even entering the business, the buying cycle for a contact center to begin with, and it's in the discovery call that you're really going to peel that out.
Awesome.
So to continue on that, I had mentioned the business users endorsement. So my team can help you. What happens is because contact center can now be purchased as a service, what's happening is, and this is across other applications, these department man, VP of client services, VP of truckload logistic operations, director of revenue cycles, these individuals, they're able to go out and make their own purchases. They're going to trade shows, they're making relationships, they're having relationships with vendors, and that sort of thing. So because there's a new buyer that's now entered that is now part of the committee, we now lend you a new seller. This is an individual, a contact center sales specialist. They are fluent in the language of customer service and net promoter scores and CSAT scoring, and can understand contact center, verbiage and these sorts of things. And this individual is a virtual member of your selling team and can help you provide guidance throughout the process. So if you execute on a solid discovery call, why are they looking for call recording? You got to peel that onion. Perhaps they want call recording because if they're not adherent to something, the regulator is going to ding them. So once you find out those 3 to 6 key use cases as to why they're even entering the buying cycle, and we find out the impact of those, we then take that into the demonstration. And then, because what we want to do in the demo is we want those little yeses that as we hit on those key use cases, we want those little yeses to get the big yes at the end of the demo, where the business side of the business leadership saying, yep, that's the tool that I want. And what happens is you've just won yourself a champion. You now have your sales coach that is going to help you, that is going to coach you throughout the other members of the committee and the other vendors and competitors and that sort of thing. So these are things that my team can help you with. Execute on that discovery, execute on a demo, and those post-demo motions to help whittle away competitors, win the endorsement of other committee members, lend you references, help you with RFPs, these sorts of things to help you close the deal.
So just case in point in that, and then we want to jump into some questions that y'all may have. We want to kind of show you how this came into practice, right? We talked a lot about what's possible. I think, though, Alistair, you've shared a lot of great experiences. But here's an instance in which a partner leveraged Alistair's team, but also led out with just one feature on contact center and opened it up for more UCaaS. We like to call this customer Healthy Med Foundation. So it was in the healthcare business. They're actually in the prescription side of the business. And this was not something that, like, these customers, a lot of the times, these are latent deals. Customers are not necessarily like knowing, as we talked about before, about contact center. They do know where they want to improve their patient experience or their customer experience. They just didn't know that this is something that was available to them. So the best part about that, and we've seen this time and time again with these deals, is that there is no pre-existing solution. This is all greenfield. All you have to do is sell them on the value, and that's what's best. It's just one and done after that. One of the things that we found that the partner was able to find was that they just said, hey, you're in the healthcare industry. Do you have a need for these, automated notifications that come out? And they go, yeah, actually, we really need them for prescription refills. And so we find, okay, that's great. Let's have a conversation about how we can help you deliver a better patient experience by making sure that they are fulfilling or refilling their prescriptions as needed to improve their health overall. Alistair's team is brought in, and some of the things that were learned is obviously they wanted a way to automate the refilled prescription permissions or notifications. They wanted better visibility into that interaction, how well they're responding, how often, how well are those engagements in general going. What was also interesting is they found out that they had a lot of toll-free numbers. So going back to what Alistair said about this opens you up, selling contact center opens up to so many other ways of capturing services. They found that this business was saying, hey, yeah, we have a lot of toll-free numbers. We're paying a ton for those toll-free minutes. That meant just, hey, can we find ways of being able to save them money on their toll-free? And then they were using a lot of different solutions in general. A lot of stuff, they're using Skype for internal chats and using some other things. And so this is an opportunity for the business to say, or this partner to go, sweet, I can now sell the UCaaS side of the business as well, especially because they're also using a really older PBX. While price was a factor, the end of the day, Alistair's team was able to tie the features or the capabilities of the product back to what that customer wanted, and they were able to totally justify it. They were able to demonstrate just, hey, here's the dynamic notifications. This is great. We can show you how effective those dynamic notifications are in a report. Hey, we have a way of pooling all of your toll-free numbers into one bucket. Because of the volume that's going in there, we can give a discount. And then they just said, hey, and we also have more collaboration tools all in one application, not spread apart from like your old PBX. and your Skype solution. The best part about it is that these sorts of deals can close within 1 calendar month. From first initial discovery, the partner reaching out, to the actual closing the deal, these can all happen in 1 calendar month. There's numbers, tons and tons of these deals that we're seeing that just all can close within 1 month. Certainly, larger organizations may take a little longer. That's just the nature of the beast when it comes to large organizations. But by and large, yeah, we're seeing a ton of deals that just close within 1 calendar month. All right. We'll open it up now for some Q&A, if that's all right.
All right.
Oh, yeah, go for it, Chris.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you so much for taking the time to go through and really thoroughly explain the contact center market and the verticals and some of the challenges. As a salesperson, you're trying to overcome, but also you're trying to, how to explore the opportunities with, as a partner with the end customer. Your subject matter expertivity or expertness or whatever is super valuable here as it relates to the contact center solution. So thank you very much, Rob and Alistair. Before we hand it back over to Bruce, I just wanted to inform everybody. I know there was a lot of information that was covered. Contact center, while there are a ton of resources available, it is a very intricate, solution. I can bend and flex and go inside out. I mean, it can do a variety of different things to help, your customers enhance their customers' experience. I think fundamentally that is the big message there. It's as a salesperson, you can grow your book of business, your revenue tremendously by asking a few probing questions related to contact center and the customer's customer experience, the customer's expected customer experience. To learn more about the contact center solution provided by Intermedia through NHC as a distribution, please go to calendly.com/stacknhc, where you can sign up for more one-on-one conversation and training about the solution. Perhaps we could go through a mock customer configuration discussion, whatever it is that you have for questions. We'd love to book the time with you to go ahead and talk about that. So that way, that you have support and that you're armed with at least some knowledge around contact center and around, how to talk to your customers about their customer experience, because that's the key to the game here. So again, I thank you very much, Rob and Alistair, for leading us through this discussion. I found it extremely enlightening. Bruce, with that, I turn it back over to you, sir.
Why, thank you. And I do have a few questions. Some of them I created as you were speaking, because Rob, one of the things that you spoke about a lot was the customer experience. And we all know that much of that depends on the agents you hire to work in your contact center. So I'm wondering, what advice do you have for contact center hiring and training?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think it all comes down to, one, you can get obviously those with experience. I think it oftentimes, what we would say is you need to take a step back and then understand what it is, what outcomes you're trying to reach. Because I would also almost push back and say, do you need to hire them? Right. So if the outcome is that, hey, we have some simple requests that are coming through, we understand the nature of the interactions that are coming into the business, that can largely dictate whether or not you just are using other technology to solve for it, right? We've talked about self-service tools to begin with. Maybe it is that you don't have to hire. Maybe the best agent is a virtual agent when it comes to outreach and internal. But when it comes to the type of agent I would look to hire, if I did say, yes, I need to have a human body there, certainly someone, high degree of patience, I think is something that's going to be required. Meticulous, look for, see how they write notes. If they have experience doing it before, how do they document the interactions that they've had in the past? What sort of collaboration do they do when it comes to finding answers? Are they resourceful, right? So are they somebody who just simply goes, I don't know the answer to that question, and then just shrugs their shoulders? You want somebody who at least has a degree of curiosity to learn more about the business so that they have the understanding to answer the questions that are coming in, but also a sense of resourcefulness as well to find the right resources when it comes to maybe it's somebody within the organization that they need to find that information from, but they would have the level of analytical, I guess, skill to know, I don't know that, but I do know who I need to go to. To be honest with you, I feel like that is somebody who is an ideal individual that you'd want to hire, as well as somebody who errs on the side of possibly over communication. Oftentimes you want somebody who is someone there who knows that they need to follow up, knows that they need to make sure that they give a status update to that customer on where they're at with fulfilling, say, a ticket or a request. So that's what I would throw out there.
Yeah, and just to add to Bruce, onto what Rob was just saying, I would argue, so we use this contact center software as part of our business operations, right? So how we're communicating with our end customers, also with our partners, but more so how we're communicating with our customer base, with our end user customer base. And this is from a proactive communication, but also a reactive, of course. But we use a lot of the tools within the software. We've automated, or we leverage the automation within the software to connect those conversations and to connect our company with our end customers. So and an example of that would be the dynamic notification communication that we broadcast out to our customers in the event that, say, one of our network operations centers was going to be going down for maintenance. So, we're pivoting our hours in our secondary NOC, which normally wouldn't be 24/7, to a 24/7 case during that maintenance window. That's just an example, right? So also maintenance communications to customers regarding products and services that we might be doing maintenance on a server or whatever the case is. So there's a variety of tools that are contained within the contact center. And I think it's important to remember that the contact center itself doesn't necessarily dictate a specific person that has experience leveraging contact center software. It's more so, as Robin indicated, what the business requirement is for the end customer. Like, what are they trying to do? How are they trying to simplify their communications to their customers? Contact center is simply a vehicle for them to go ahead and do that. So if you had, a contact center deployed for use a healthcare facility, let's say a surgery center, you're probably still going to be hiring bodies that are familiar with that healthcare procedure and healthcare operations and so on. The contact center is just simply going to make their job easier and allow them, it's going to bridge gaps in communications between that employer or those employees and then the patients of that healthcare facility. So
it's a great call out, Chris. The industry is a massive factor as well. Yeah, I totally agree there.
Yeah.
All right. Can you just run down the resources and the benefits that are available for helping the partner market NHC Contact Center?
Sure, I'll take that real quick. So NHC, we are a large nationwide aggregate of services. We have our own voice network, coast to coast. That's a SIP-based, voice over IP-based network. But we also sell a great deal of resold services from upstream service providers like Intermedia and their contact center. So we have a variety of resources that are available for the products that we sell. We leverage a lot of the resources from our upstream partners like Intermedia for the services that they are truly subject matter experts on. And Intermedia has one of the best knowledge bases that I've seen over our over 80 different partners, upstream partners that we partner with, from access to software to so on and so forth. And those resources alone within the knowledge base are absolutely key for our product people. So for my product team, our marketing team, our sales team internally, our channel managers, and then we also provide those resources to our partners. And then, as Alistair had mentioned, his job, his team's job is to enable partner growth. So if we get into a scenario where any one of our partners, our sales partners, has a question about an opportunity or a specific question about product and service within the contact center or anything along those lines, his team is available to get on the horn as a round table to go ahead and talk about the opportunity before the customer contact, during the customer contact, and even through to signing of the opportunity. So Alice, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that, but the resources are robust, I would argue.
Very much so. For certain in sale and in the meeting and in the demonstration, and then those post demo type actions and motions to help you win the sale. But for those of you that are partners and you'd like to attack your client base, or you have hunters, we could help there too. There's a lot of sales materials, sell sheets, and training, webinars, all kinds of stuff that we can help you out with.
Okay, so what needs to be the key focus for companies who are concerned about their budgets?
You know what? Why don't I take that real quick?
Yes.
I know that we're a couple of minutes over, and I guess that might be our last question. I would similar to what Rob was saying before, going after that caller self-service. If they're a 30C contact center, how to take that 30 and turn it into 28, turn it into 25, those sorts of things. Asking that question, what is a repeatable, a simple task? We do have various, get in touch with your NHC rep. There are different packages available to folks. And what's interesting about the way how we work when we're working with NHC, the way how we price it, and what makes us different is that it provides you cost certainty. There's a concurrency there. We don't charge for supervisors, that sort of thing. So it's very expensive, especially you're with an Avaya or an NHC or a Cisco, or where they're very expensive to have. You got fees for all kinds of sorts of things. We don't have those sorts of fees. We don't charge for professional services. We don't charge for CRM integrations. We don't charge for some of these other fees that we'll see in the marketplace. What your quote is what your invoice is going to be. And what I'll end with, those 3 to 4 or 5 or 6 critical use cases, why they're even entering the buying cycle. If you focus on those and look for caller self-service in there, a way to automate that and reduce talk time, just a few seconds of talk time over the course of 10 users, over the course of the day, the month, the year, it'll net anywhere in a 10C contact center. If you shave off just 5 seconds of talk time, it'll net 300 to 400 net new phone calls over the course of the year.
Okay, let's do one more question quickly. And that is for you to discuss specific verticals that you might want to attack, or verticals that you would want to ignore.
Yeah, when it comes to, I think when we speak to the verticals you want to go after, you notice that we've kind of mentioned a lot of them that have great applicability, right? We talked about education, healthcare, professional services. But to be honest with you, everybody needs to improve their customer experience. There isn't necessarily one business that is not going to be a good fit. It's just whether or not you can help them justify it by how you're going to help them save. So the good news is there's not necessarily anything to avoid per se. Maybe that's my hot take, but I would say that because everybody needs to improve their customer experience, so long as you can find a good use case and drive those critical use cases, like Alistair said, there's not any industry that couldn't use this. And if you have an industry that you specialize in, I'm hoping, talk to Chris and you can walk through how these different features could be used in those specific use cases. If it's higher education, talk about student services. It's about when registration is going to happen. How do you manage IT issues within the classroom when this professor has an issue there? Do you provide a confidential way for students to get resources to the help that they need through, say, for instance, text or what have you? Right. So these are the sorts of ways that you can get creative with the use cases. But again, we've seen tons of high success regardless of the industry that we're operating in.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for the webinar. I want to thank all of our presenters from NHC's Contact Center Software Partner Intermedias, Alistair Quinteros, Senior Director of Contact Center Sales, and Robert Ascanyon, Director of Product Marketing. And of course, we want to thank our host, Chris Susi, the Director of Product and Brand at NHC, the communication stack provider. Now, at this time, I'd like to note and to thank NHC for being a platinum sponsor and Intermedia for being a bronze sponsor of our upcoming CVX Expo 22, which takes place November 2nd through 4th at the Talking Stick Resort in Scottsdale, Arizona. Attendees get full access to all educational seminars, the exhibit floor, all meals and networking opportunities, and the chance to win a $10,000 raffle prize, all for the registration fee of $199. To register, go to register.cvxexpo.com. And as for those 3 CVS Expo 22 free passes, someone will contact you if your name is chosen, so good luck. Now, before I go, I want to remind you that you can access this webinar and all other Channel Vision presentations on demand by visiting our website at channelvisionmag.com. And now from all of us at Channel Vision Magazine and from our friends at NHC and Intermedia, we look forward to seeing you at CVX Expo 22. Thanks for attending and have a safe and prosperous day.